Hello, everyone. This is Quinn,
and Anna,
and this is the Q&A podcast.
Today we are here at the eCenter, and we're going to be celebrating LDC's very own Bradley Collegia for his birthday.
And Brad is our executive director and helps support the 3 programs that we have here. He also has quite the extensive resume in the field of business.
Join us as we have Brad share his insight on the red and green flags of business.
We got Brad a cake. Today's his birthday. Celebrating life.
Thank you both.
So now you have to make a wish.
It's definitely a homemade cake.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. Happy birthday.
So today's episode is Brad's birthday bash, and in honor of that, they say you get older and wiser. We want you to share your advice with our listeners on the red and green flags of business. So here we have with us some prompts, and we're going to read them to you, and then you're just going to say, is it a green flag or is it a red flag? So I'll hand these over to you. Okay, would you like to kick us off, too?
Yeah, sure. Let me find a good one.
They're all good.
Well, Okay, question 1, or statement 1. The startup founder is unwilling to take advice from anyone outside the industry.
Big red flag. You got to be open to anything. Having those conversations, kind of trying to find people who maybe even like in fields that are adjacent to what you're doing or what you're building is important. If you're, somebody who, for example, you're entrepreneur and you're selling a physical product, there's a ton of different avenues. You need to be able to reach out to people and get feedback on everything from digital marketing to social media to supply chain management and things like logistics. So
and you've had quite a few startups yourself. Have you seen that overlap of business fields?
Yeah, everything has I think there's no, even if you're in tech, for example, it's not just straight, you're only working on a technical side. When you're in tech, at some point as you scale, you're going to have to hire people in marketing, in sales, business development, accounting, HR, depending on how big you get. So you have to really just be constantly learning and evolving. So
big red flag right there.
Big red flag.
Next one, someone with a new business decides to utilize a suite at the eCenter.
Huge green flag. Big green flag. Yeah, so we have single and double suites. But the biggest thing is just making sure as an organization that we're not just having space filled, right? We want companies who have entrepreneurs, founders that are really motivated and driven. And so when they come here, they are not just going into a suite and working out a bit. And obviously they can have the branding and marketing of having a physical space. There's a lot of benefits to having an address versus using your home or something like that, especially from both a social media standpoint. A lot of social media pages won't allow you, for example, like with Google or even like Facebook, they won't allow you to use a home address in cases where you're trying to really get out there with an SEO standpoint. So you can utilize the space for that. But then beyond that, all of the program services that we have, actually just reviewing right now, one of our startups in here, the marketing materials they're sending over to me, giving them feedback and making adjustments on it so that they can get those out there and hopefully start to get some client customers. And so having that touch that goes beyond just that physical space is really important for us.
Yeah, that's good. Next one, a startup delays launching for a year to make the product perfect.
The perfect's the key word there. So I'll go red flag. Delaying isn't always a bad thing. You have to make sure that you know your market. You're not just kind of diving in at first and putting something out there that you're going to regret in terms of if you get enough users and beta testers early on and the feedback is horrendously negative. That's not a good thing. Some people will rush into it, but that's the minority. More often than not, what we see is, yes, this constant, especially in tech, people just want to build and build and build, and they don't realize that at some point you have to launch. If you want to, I think a lot of it is nerves. They're afraid that once this gets out there, then their idea is going to be tested. And so people are going to give feedback and they're worried about some negative feedback.
Next question. The business is profitable but has no written business plan.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I'll probably go here. I don't think that you need a business plan in today's world. I think that some companies it's helpful. I've never written a business plan, right? I've put down ideas. I have things charted out. I've never had a formal business plan. There's been pitch decks and things like that, but um, a business plan is important if you want a loan. Banks still appreciate a business plan. In a lot of cases, will require it. Aside from that, though, like an investor is never really going to want a business plan. They'll want a memo. They'll want a deck. Um, if you're not raising money, if you're just going, as you mentioned, in this case, it's profitable. The reason why I would put up a little bit of a red flag is depending on where you're at, scale and profitability, there's a chance that you'll want to, at some point do something with fundraising. At some point do something you might need to take on some debt. So you want to have something in place. The one thing that is nice about a business plan too is it shows that strategic planning. And so if you don't have a business plan, it could be a little bit concerned around if you've done any strategic planning for the future, or if you're kind of skating by. But at the same time, I think especially it's kind of an old school way of thinking around like I want to start something, so the first thing I need to do is
A founder hires their best friend as their CFO without a formal hiring process.
I feel like I already know the answer.
Yeah, we'll go red there. If you're building a team, you need to make sure, going back to a comment that I made earlier with the subject matter expertise, you need to be the subject matter expert. And then if you bring on somebody else, they also need to be a subject matter expert or great at whatever you're hiring them for. And I think specifically too, you mentioned like hiring a best friend. Typically in that case, in a startup, you're also giving them equity. And so if you're giving anybody a percentage, if you're inviting anybody onto your cap table, and you're surrendering a piece of your company, like they need to be bringing that amount of value to whatever you're building. And a lot of times what will happen is, I'm 100%, I bring on somebody, numbers are just numbers, I'm not really thinking things out strategically. I say, hey, you want to come on to my company and I'll give you 30-40%. We see this a lot with companies that aren't technical, so they'll bring on a technical person who maybe is an app developer or a web developer, and they'll give them a huge chunk of their company. But then that person doesn't bring, once they build it, they don't bring any value beyond that, right? And then you're stuck, and now you try to go out and you try to fundraise, or you're the one doing all the work to bring in the revenue, and you're constantly cutting 30-40% of your company out to give to this person who isn't actually doing a whole lot for you.
Next one here. A small business takes on debt to purchase equipment that will double production capacity.
It's tough. Yeah, like it could be both. I mean, I think because at the end of the day, your debt, anything you take on, whether it's debt or you in your company, is going to really be dependent. For debt, it's all about your cash flow. So if you don't have cash flow, it's a huge red flag. If you don't have money coming in, because then, presumably to get that debt, to get the money, you had to put up something as collateral. So if you don't have cash flow, you could lose a lot. You could lose your house. You could lose, but if you have cash flow, taking on debt can be, a green flag. There's some people who are very anti-debt always. Debt can be a way, though, to raise capital without giving up equity in your company. And so debt, I've never been in a situation in any of the startups, because especially in tech, debt really isn't a major component within that. But if you do work in things like real estate, if you have something, I think in that example with manufacturing, debt's very common, but you have to be smart with it. You should never take on debt without having cash flow. That's a major red flag. But it can be a green flag if you do have things actually going in a positive direction, if you do have that monthly recurring revenue. If you can project out accurately your next 12 months and you know that you can cover that, that monthly payment or whatever you're looking at pretty securely, then that can be something that can really be used as leverage. So.
Yeah, this is my final question. The founder works 80 plus hours a week and hasn't taken a day off in months.
So that's a red flag. Mental health in the space, in the startup space, is incredibly important. You have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. It's okay to work hard. I mean, it's not that, when you are as an entrepreneur, building and growing something, you're going to work a lot more hours than a traditional 9 to 5. You're going to work a lot more outside of you're working a day job. You're probably going to be doing a lot in addition to it, but you want to make sure, from a taking time off standpoint, there's no badge of honor that's given to somebody at the end because they worked 80 hours a week and haven't taken a day, haven't spent any time with friends or family for months or weeks at a time. So you have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, definitely, because you'll burn out. And, once you kind of get to that point of burnout, it's just really hard to have those productive days that are needed on an ongoing basis in the startup world.
That's great. So that brings us to the end of red or green flags in business. Thank you, Brad. A lot of great insight, a lot of great answers. Do you have any final words to share with our listeners?
Here, come and build at the eCenter. We have the suites, as I mentioned. We have co-working space. We have a ton of services. Just ran our first accelerator that the eCenter's run in a few years. Gave out $10,000 worth of prizes there to companies. So we have a lot of different services going on. I meet with startups on a weekly basis. In some cases, it's almost on every other day with a few of them, and we'll help with everything from the marketing to the social media support to strategic planning, kind of the planning around the business itself. If there's ever any questions that you have from a finance standpoint, we're happy to offer support. Between myself, we have a number of people within our network too that can help. So come on down and build with us here.
And on that note, where can our listeners find more information on, you or the organization?
Yeah, so eCenter at Linden Point is where to go. So that's the address for everything. From an email standpoint, you can find us on LinkedIn, eCenter at Linden Point, across the social media page, any channels as well. Or come on up to 3580 Innovation Way up in Linden Point to our beautiful building. We're trying to get more people up here. That's been the goal of all of the events that we've been holding, from our cookouts to coffee to the accelerator program, just trying to get people in the community to see that you can build really innovative companies right here in the Shenango Valley. And we've had a number of companies over the years that have come out and have had a ton of success. And so that's what's really important, is giving people that area where they can build.
Right.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like we're definitely a hidden gem up here.
Yeah.
Yep. So we do have a little surprise for you. So we're gonna cut clip and we'll be right back.
Yeah.